is it safe condition is what they're expressing, that they're very hesitant and cautious because they want to make sure that it is a safe place for their child to be. Um, and even anecdotally, when my teachers called to set up appointments for students to take their Azella test for this year, again, it's a mixed bag of when is the school going to reopen? I really want them there versus they can come for the test, but that's it. and they're going to stay remote after that. Another area we talked about, really just trying to take temperature with our staffs about whether a 2-day or a 5-day option makes sense. Really, the majority, some opted for a 2-day that transitions into a 5-day, but the majority between all of our schools expressed a 5 days, but maintaining that remote option for students who want to stay home. When we tried to guesstimate what we thought we would see for a population staying at home if we do open back up, was 2 of our schools felt about 60 to 70% would probably still stay home. And that's just based off what we saw last fall with our hybrid option at that time and what those numbers looked like. Another 2 schools felt like only about 30 or 40% would be staying home. So kind of a two different extremes there. And then the staff, kind of the consensus we came to talking about all the different schools was those who elected to get their vaccine definitely feel more confident after receiving both, that they wouldn't want to necessarily go back if they just had the one, that they would like this to have both. If there is a way to maintain that social distancing and that the new enhanced maintenance measures were kept up on, that they would feel more confident there. There's quite a few between all 4 schools who just want to get going, who just want to work with kids because it's been a year. It's been a year almost since they've had the chance. But the impression we got from that conversation regarding all of our schools was their appreciation that we have, as a district, been following the data and making decisions that are data based. So there's a definite appreciation that as a district we maintain that.
And I'm going to suggest that we hear from all 4 principals, and then they can take questions in the interest of time. Does that sound reasonable?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Next on the list is Angela Logan, O.C. Johnson. Angela, are you here?
I am here.
All right.
Good evening. I had the privilege of representing Raleigh, Palmcraft, McGraw, and then of course O.C. Johnson. And some of our conversations were similar to the North End, while others varied. When it comes to what's going well, we talked a lot about what teachers have done. So the teachers' learning curve has been very extreme, and they have taken it and run with it. So we've seen a lot of new apps used, like Mr. Buckley talked about. Google Classroom has been used extensively. New ways to collaborate virtually we have seen. And so it's been really amazing to see what our teachers have done with the challenges and have really come out shining bright. So that's what is going well. In terms of parent feedback, we get it a lot. It's mixed. We have a number of parents who just want their kids back in school and are worried just as much, obviously, about the social emotional piece that their kids are going through as the academic loss that many of them are seeing. We've had parents angry. We've had parents crying. We have parents overwhelmed. And of course, we still have parents who are scared to send their kids to school. So we have a lot of mixed reactions from parents. When we talked about the 2-day or 5-day, the majority of us believe that a 5-day would be the option, with the opportunity for students to remain remote if the family chooses. we think that the 2-day wouldn't be very popular, that parents are either going to want to send their kids to school or they're not. And so we've seen increasing numbers in morals across all of our schools, even this week. And so we feel that that number is just going to keep increasing. And once we are coming back, that the 5-day option would be what parents will want and need, essentially, because many of them will rely on high school kiddos or, other family members to babysit that may be lost in changes when other districts make changes as well. We talked about the percentage of kids that we think will come back. We were at a 60% in the lowest up to 90%. So we're thinking most of our kids are going to come back when we offer that option. Staff feeling, again, mixed. Mostly what we're seeing is they're worried about kids as well. So they're starting to see those social emotional impact, the academic impact, and many of them, like Mr. Buckley said, are just ready to go, but want to know that things are planned. So they want to be able to plan what lunches look like and what recesses look like and what happens if we cannot social distance because of the number of kids in a classroom. So they're ready, but with plans. With plans made, I think the comfort level will increase there. And that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Angela. Next on our list is Kevin Gettings from Castle Dome Middle School. Kevin, are you with us?
I'm sorry, Mr. Sheldall. I'm going to start off first as the parents' view because I'm a father of 6, and so I take that, obviously like everyone else, very seriously, but it's really personal as well to myself. I want to start off saying I've made some phone calls to parents this last week. I just randomly went through our list and started calling some parents and kind of, getting their take on it. Conversations went well. Again, a lot of emotions. Everyone kind of has their version of what it should look like when we return. But overall, the majority of the parents I spoke to are ready for the schools to be opened. Just like Ms. Logan mentioned, they definitely want to know the plan. We've given some tours recently. We've had parents come in and independently, we've walked them around and shown them, things that we put in place. And because they just want that comfort level like we all do. Their concern, the biggest concern I heard from parents was the bouncing around. If we do return to the 5-day, whatever date that is, they're worried about a couple weeks later going back to remote. That was one of the big concerns that came up from the parents that I spoke to. And the term I heard a lot was the bouncing around. As for things that are going well, I think there's a lot of things going well, and obviously we're not perfect. We're learning as we go. We've had upset parents call, but by the end, hopefully we've resolved those problems as a district. We've had lots of supports from lots of schools getting help if there's an issue with some type of tech problem or MiFi problem. We've worked together, so that's been great. We think a lot of the parents said we increased communication. They felt during this time there was a lot better communication from our school and specifically from the middle schools, which sometimes we didn't do as well of a job of that before. But during this time, during COVID time, we have done much better job. They thought students have been empowered. Kids, I'm getting 4 or 5 emails a day from students now who are reaching out with questions, trying to reconnect or reconnect with their teachers for different reasons. But that's been, that's the big thing that came out, empowering students. And one thing our district pushes for is personalized learning. Right now, the personalized learning piece is huge. Kids know a lot of the technology and support they have. We have, a lot of the schools have tutoring going on, support. The students have personalized their learning and using the programs and the supports that are in place to just enhance that learning for them. So those are some things that went well. Concerns from staff, not really concerns. We did a survey with a lot of our teachers and it was kind of all over the board. We showed some of that data, and when we get those results, we have however many people do the surveys is how many different options we have sometimes. But the number one thing our staffs at the middle schools, and again, I'm speaking for all middle schools, they really want to be safe. They want us to continue to follow the matrix and the data to make sure we're using that to make our decisions. And they definitely want the kids back. All the teachers want the kids back, but they're just concerned for safety of the students and staff. You know, we're the bigger schools. If we open the doors and go to a 5-day and we have close to 900 kids show up, how do we handle that? We haven't dealt with that in a year and had all students report to school. So that's kind of the concern that came up from that. The recommendation the middle schools make is to start to a 2-day hybrid. I know, and the reasons for that is due to the size and to figure out how many students are truly going to show up and go to school. We think out here in the middle schools, we think we're going to have anywhere from 70 to 85% of the kids show up. So that's a huge concern when we just are all 800 going to show up on that first day of school. We really don't have a good number. If we started in a hybrid situation, we'd be able to figure that out. And then in a few weeks, phase into, you know, the 5-day. That's what came out of the middle school discussions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Gettings. And our final principal is from Otondo Elementary, Ashley Fox. Ashley, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you all, and I'm excited to represent the East Elementary Schools with Sunrise, Price, Dessa, Dorothy Hall, and here at Otondo. Being the last one in the group, a lot of things that I have to share are similar to what my colleagues have shared, but definitely a lot of positives that we've taken away from what we've been calling COVID learning. Not something that we ever want to do again necessarily, but we have learned how much more we are capable of doing than we initially thought. Again, parent communication is at an all-time high. Connection with our teachers, our colleagues, our fellow staff members. We've had to rely on one another in a capacity that we've never had to rely on before. The morale and things like that on campus are definitely at an all-time high. And all of the different options, virtual meetings, those types of things, accommodations that we've learned that we can make for parents that may have difficult schedules to be able to come to campus, and those types of things when we do return on site for learning. Again, just kind of matching what everyone has said, but the general feedback overall is that yes, our parents do want their children back in school. We feel as though as long as we have the hybrid full remote option, that is still available to the parents. Therefore, the East Valley does recommend the 5-day return to learning, as we feel that the parents that are going to send their children would prefer to just go ahead and send them for that 5 days. We don't really feel the need to test the mitigation plan, if you will, in the sense that some of our morals numbers here have been very high, over that 200 mark. And we feel as though, given the number of cases that we have had on campus and the number of, spread, if you will, the amount of spread, which has been very minimal, if any at all, actually, we feel that the mitigation plan works. It is effective. We've tested it. We've tried it. We've seen it work. The teachers and staff, they're ready, of course. Are they wanting to know that safety protocols are in place? Absolutely. But I feel that they feel confident in the conversations that administrators have had with them, as well as district personnel. They feel as though the district does value their safety, their students' safety. And they want to get back to the classrooms and do what they are great at doing. They've done, again, extraordinary things virtually, but we all know that students learn best when they are in a classroom with a teacher, and that's what we're looking to do. We are getting a lot of questions. I think Angela was the one that mentioned a lot of the specifics. What is specials going to look like? What is the cafeteria going to look like? A lot of those things that are difficult to plan for until we know the board's decision and how we are going to be moving forward. The 2-day cohorts change those things. They change the number of students that we may have a little bit, so it changes our planning. Our numbers overall for the East Valley, we do anticipate that we'll have upwards of 80 to 85% of our students returning. We have several students already on campus, as I mentioned, and we anticipate that once we're given that green light, those numbers will just increase as well. Similar to what Mr. Gettings said, a lot of the feedback also is just that stability. Parents and teachers alike, they're concerned about opening up just to be shut down again. What does that look like? What is the matrix that we're going to follow that would warrant a closure again? Those types of things. Another question would be the social distancing. When we do return with classes upwards of 35 students, we cannot maintain that 6-foot distance between our students. Masks being worn all day or not, what would warrant a close contact? What would justify a classroom closure? All of those specifics that the admin team and the district team, of course, will have to look towards and plan for. But again, the recommendation for the East Valley would be the 5-day return. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for any of our principals? One thing that I thought was interesting is the schools where more kids have been attending via the Morals program are more confident about opening up, and the schools where there's been fewer students on campus seem to have more reservations. Seem to be an inverse correlation there.
What I found interesting is that there's a theme through this whole thing, and it didn't matter whether it was the north end or the middle school or the east side schools. They're pretty much right in line with each other, and I found that very interesting, that there wasn't a huge gap between what the parents are looking for and what the teachers are looking for. The gap is very, very narrow.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for Mr. Gettings. Kevin, you expressed that many of the middle schools would prefer the 2-day hybrid that would then transition to 5-day. Is that an open end? How do we know when it's appropriate to transition? And in that time of a 2-day hybrid, what plans would be made so that you could manage the 5-day remote hybrid? So I'm just asking, what's that transition look like, and how would it help versus just going 5 days all in?
Yeah, well, a couple things we discussed, if half the students show up on the first 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, obviously the other half, we can transition. We do rotate classes every hour. All the middle schools do rotate. We have, our lunch situation. I can speak for my school. I have, over 850 kids. We have 3 lunches. Into our pod buildings, there's 1 door to go in, 1 door to go out. Training everybody is going to be a big part of this. Obviously, trying to keep everyone safe. But a big thing was just the large numbers of kids that will be on campus, and getting those transition things in place and trying to keep everybody safe. And we figured if we, had the 2 days, we could transition in a few weeks into the full day, we could get those routines in place.
So it's about building routines with students?
Correct. Yeah, and the safety of it all. That is correct. Just it's I don't know the exact numbers off, but a large number of the middle schools are your larger schools, and I don't know if the middle schools have rotated or the elementaries have rotated. No one's tried the rotating yet during this pandemic, and that I'm aware of. So we're just trying to figure that out. How to get the flow of the kids, the moving in and out of buildings and that type of thing. We've got to figure that out to keep everybody safe.
I guess I have a question for all 4 of you. Thank you so much for your information. What would be your ideal if the decision were made tonight, whatever it is, what would be, speaking as a professional, what would be your ideal lead time as far as a drop-down date to go back to school, to get all these plans in place, to make you feel comfortable?
I can go first. The middle school principals talked about starting hybrid on March 15th due to the fact that that would give everyone 2 weeks after that second shot. That was kind of the number of days to get the full immunity from the shot, and then maybe transition after spring break into the full day.
Thank you.
And I could,
Matt?
yeah, just because our group also had that same idea, was to give our teachers 2 weeks after that second vaccination to look at a 2-day hybrid for that last couple of weeks in March, and then returning after spring break and full 5-day.
I could speak for our group. This is Angela Logan, and we are thinking around March 8th. We thought about the March 3rd and the percentage of teachers that will have their second vaccination then. And we felt comfortable with a March 8th 5-day. We didn't really enjoy the idea of the 2-day hybrid. Again, we thought if parents are going to send kids, they're going to send them. And so we were comfortable with a March 8th 5-day.
And Angela, you feel you're comfortable with getting your plans in place, lunch plans, bathroom recess plans, the whole 9 yards by the 8th of March?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
And then,
I can
another
just-
question.
Ashley has,
3
let's see what Ashley has to say.
Oh,
Sorry.
Ashley.
I apologize. I was just going to add, and for the East Elementaries, we were actually looking even a little closer, I guess, more towards the March 1st date. There was a lot of conversation, again, about the safety protocols and the different situation that we're currently in with the vaccines and testing, and then also what some of our neighboring districts were going to do in regards to morals being on-site supervision for students that may currently be at home with their high school siblings and under their supervision. And depending on what those decisions are, our morals numbers may increase before our actual opening date, even more so. So that was another conversation that we had.
Thank you.
I have a question in the sense, if one of the elementary teachers can respond, and then Mr. Gettings as the representative of the middle school, how are you going to be planning on handling your specials?
I'll start and then we can see. So I can speak for, again, the East Elementaries. Our specials are the one area that we feel have really kind of had the restraints even more so than the others. They've had a lot of changes, whether it be just recorded instruction. They're really missing that live piece that many of our teachers have still been able to have. There was conversation about having either the teacher, the special area teacher, go like in a cart type basis, room to room. There was also conversation about having the students come to the special area, but shorten those times to allow times for sanitation prior to and then or after each class as well. I know that when we met as an admin team, that was still one of those areas that we hadn't officially decided as we were waiting to kind of see what the decision overall would be. But I think I speak for all principals when our planning for return to learning started the day we closed in regards to what our schedules would possibly look like and those types of things. So these are all things that we all have going on in our heads as well.
Thank you.
At the middle schools, we've kept them built into their daily schedules. So we will return to those classes like normal. Our constructions, the only concerns we really have are for choir and band. We've been working that out, how we're going to figure that out. That's kind of its own situation to deal with. But as for FACS, art, Avid, we still have all those built in throughout the day, and they'll rotate to those classes just like they would their typical core areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gettings.
Any more questions for our principals?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, thank you, principals. Appreciate your patience and your joining us, and it's about dinner time for you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
again.
principals.
Thank you, principals.
So that's all the information that we have for you today. So that's a lot. It was 2 hours worth of information. It's time for discussion, for additional questions. Potentially make a decision.
Madam President, I have a question. I know Mr. Shepherd said something that the middle school is on a different 940 to 340.
All of our schools are on the same
So it's
timeframe.
all, and so would that change going back to?
We're gonna keep that, and what that will do is, number one, it'll maintain consistency for everybody with the schedule, but number two, it still maintains the opportunity to clean those buses between bus runs between the two
Okay.
districts.
So it's a collaboration with transportation as well.
And Mrs. Fox referred to the neighboring district. She was talking about the high school district. They're meeting right now at the same time we are. Their recommendation is going to be go to a 5-day hybrid option on March 1st. And Mrs. Thompson gave me permission to share this information today. Their survey to parents, 64% of their students plan to return in person. And at one school, which you may guess is in the same neighborhood as some of our schools, is over 75%. So they'll be looking at 1,700 kids on campus. And they've been having sports, they've been having activities at the high schools already.
I do have a question, and I should have brought it up when the principals were still with us. When they say a 5-day return, the ones that were speaking, were they speaking 5 days, Monday through, not hybrid, just 5 straight days?
Monday
Or are
through
they
Friday.
doing
Well,
5-day hybrid?
when we talk about hybrid, what we mean by hybrid is some kids are home and some kids are
Right.
at school. So a District 1 construct has been the idea between a 2-day hybrid and a 5-day hybrid.
Okay,
Okay, so kids being at school all 5 days, that's still a hybrid model as long as some kids have the opportunity to stay
to
home.
stay home, okay.
So I think if I could just kind of interject in, there's gonna be time to reach out and see how many kids are gonna be at school. I think it's fair for us to ask parents to make a decision for the rest of the school year.
Yes.
Our principals are great. If there's something that changes in somebody's living circumstances and they need, they call, we accommodate, but right now it's an estimate. And I think some people are estimating high, maybe not, but I think as long as we give ourselves some lead time, they can get a good number of when they're trying to figure out how many kids are gonna be there. They can reach out through homerooms, through teachers, through Class Dojo. They can zero in with pretty good accuracy how many kids are gonna be there and then have time to plan for how that works. And, we can work with middle schools. One thing we talked about is initially maybe having the teachers move and not the kids. A lot of schools do that, at least until you get things figured out, and I know that,
Right.
we talked about the differences. There's a difference if you have a school where kids change classes outside as opposed to inside. You take a school like Gila Vista or Woodard, when they change classes, they go outside, which is, much better option in this environment than having to stay inside. Castle Dome and Fourth Avenue and Ron Watson, they can still maintain some cohorts, with their pods or with their 6th graders, 7th graders, 8th graders, to where there's not a total commingling.
Well, I've got my concern is with starting with the 5 days with the middle school is how you're going to accommodate those 600 to 800 students in a safe manner. Are we thinking about throwing in, and I don't want to say the word throw, but add an additional lunch to,
That's a possibility. First of all, we only have one middle school that's bigger than 600 kids. Fourth Avenue and Gila Vista are in the 450 range total.
okay,
So is Ron Watson. Woodard is this year they're down over 100 students, so they're in the 600 range. Woodard, the first time around, had a very low in-person turnout. So, I would, Castle Dome may have that many students, may have, 600 or 700 students actually come. The rest of them, I wouldn't, they're not that big to begin with.
Okay, but the main reason I'm asking this is from the logistical point of view. It takes a lot of coordination, and as Mr. Gettings said, it takes time to get those
Yes.
middle school kids in a routine. Okay, I don't normally go this way, but now I have to go this
Right,
direction
right.
and this direction versus what they knew before. And so, I'm bringing it up because it is, it's a logistical, process to get through.
It absolutely is. Mhm.
I was thinking about those same middle school routines, and that's why I asked Mr. Gettings, and I certainly don't have the answers, and God bless our teachers for figuring it all out and giving them time to figure it out. It strikes me that it's possible that having a student teaching the routines over 5 days might cement it faster than you're in class for 2 days and you learn your routines, you're out for 3, and then you come back and, oh yeah, that's what I do. So now I'm gonna go back to that 2-day routine. I just feel like perhaps the routines could be cemented more quickly with 5 days in a row versus 2 days on and 3 days off.
And I think, communication upfront with parents is gonna be very important. And, a school like Castle Dome, a large school like that, part of the communication is gonna need to be, there may be a lot of kids on campus. We need to be transparent with parents at those schools where, where a large number of students potentially could come back, and so that they know when they're making that choice, what their choice is. I think it's important that the parents will have a choice to stay home or to send their child to school.
Right.
The teachers will have had the opportunity to be vaccinated and therefore protected.
Well, I think something we need to remember too is that these are kids that have not been in school for a year, pretty much. So whatever routine they had back then is gone. Their routine is not what it was a year ago, and they probably don't even remember what it was a year ago. So I think we have to remember that, and I just think that the phenomenal job that our staff has done with this whole epidemic is not over. They're gonna continue to do that phenomenal job, and it's gonna be the logistic issue right now, and I think we need to remember that and give credit where credit's due and let them come up with a plan.
Yeah.
And, the thing I heard over and over was, just let us know what your plan is and we'll be
Right.
fine.
Right.
As long as we know what your plan is and we know you've got a plan, I'm comfortable with sending my child to school. And I think we need, as Jamie said, give them the time to come up with the plans. And then it's not gonna work the first time. We all know that. We're gonna have to tweak it several times. And I
Monitor and adjust.
just think we need to listen to the 4 principles, and because the overlying thing I heard was, I want my kids back in school. You guys figure out how to do it, but I want them back in school, and I think we need to listen to that.
Right.
And I think the kids, they know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they'll adapt.
Yes.
They will.
That's what we saw in the fall. When the kids came back, they were very compliant. Very compliant. When it came to the mitigation things, yes, there were some little ones where, obviously with little kids, they need frequent reminders, but they understand. I don't want to put you on the spot, but Christine's a parent of a 4th grader? 5th? And
See, in a year, he
They
went from
understand.
4th to 5th.
they understand wouldn't you say the kids understand the scenario, the situation?
They probably understand it better than we do.
Yeah,
I was just patting her on the back.
Much more resilient.
For her resilience.
Yeah.
I don't think she's complained as much as I have throughout this
Yeah.
pandemic.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Mr. Sheldon, I'd like to return to the vaccination data.
Okay,
As the principals were throwing out some dates, some possible return to school dates and with the high school district, what their potential return is. And it strikes me that if 90% of our teachers who wanted to be vaccinated will have their second shot by Wednesday, March 3rd, we have as safe a workforce as we can have, except for those 24 perhaps who were, but still the first round vaccination is somewhat effective. And then we have 24 teachers who will have their second vaccination the following week, which I hope doesn't adversely impact, the classroom situation the following day. But it strikes me that our workforce should be largely safe by Wednesday, March 3rd, or those days following. It's just that data point sticks out at me.
yes, and my understanding, and Mrs. Henning, you might have a lot better understanding of this than me, since you really are a scientist. I'm not, I'm an old English teacher. But, within 2 weeks of the second dose, protection is at 50% or better.
Or more, yeah.
And when they were first talking about developing vaccines, they said, if we could get something that's 50% effective, that would be really good.
Yeah.
And then it continues to increase.
Yes.
And then the second dose,
Yeah.
we hear another 2 weeks, but my understanding is shortly after that second dose, as soon as the body recognizes it
yeah.
and reacts, and then because my understanding is what those side effects are is your body, your immune system recognizing and fighting off what it believes is the
intruder.
And so when that process finishes, whether it's the fatigue or the fever or the headache or whatever, then by that time, then you're looking at being very near that 90%. Is that not correct?
Correct, that is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we see your analog again, please?
Yes, I would love to wheel that baby over.
Only because it has a big calendar.
So the high school district, they went first,
Right.
Lucky's. And they're gonna have their second vaccination somewhere in here. And high likelihood that they'll start school
On the first.
here.
So their high school saying March 1st?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they'll have the second shots
Right.
in.
Right.
We'll have had the second shot during the week prior to March 1st.
And our second shot
Is
is the
following
third.
week. Mhm.
Yeah.
About 90% of the
90%.
teachers will have had their second shot here. So a corresponding date would be
Mhm.
here, would be the 8th.
And that gives us 3 weeks before spring break and 8 weeks after spring break.
Yep.
So 11 weeks of instruction
And 3 weeks to plan.
and 3 weeks to
3
plan.
weeks.
And we get information from parents about who's gonna come
Transportation.
back, who's not, to do some class balancing.
Mhm.
That's something also in the middle school, when the kids have multiple classes, you can balance those classes.
Right.
Okay, it's harder in elementary because all of a sudden my kid has to change teachers, right?
That's a
hard.
big thing, yeah,
That's hard.
very hard.
But at the middle school, I'm still gonna have the same teacher for social studies, it's just that his third period is big, so I'm not gonna be in third period anymore, I'm gonna be in fourth period now. So, but, I think, here we are, we're looking at a 3-week period potentially, and also, the rate these are going, this is 11.2, this may very well be in the 10%. And this may very well be in the 10%, which would put us coming back on that date anyway,
Right.
Right,
even just going by the metrics.
right. If you disregarded vaccination, if you took that out of the equation, just the metrics.
Right.
Right.
That's what we had in the fall.
And we have two, in my mind, two game changers. One is the preventative game changer of the vaccine. The other is the responsive game changer of the on-site testing
Right.
and rapid return.
When is AC merit testing? Have they put a date
Right
on
after
it?
break.
Right after spring break? Is it always right after spring break?
Most of
isn't
it's
it?
after spring break.
Okay.
Third graders are earlier though, right?
Third graders are just due earlier.
Due earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shorter window for third graders because of the Blue Mountain region.
But it's my understanding, Dwayne, that they've opened up the
Window?
window on the testing all the way to early May, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, to early May, and of course, Azella is this like 3-month,
Oh,
this 3-month thing, so we're doing Azella right now. That goes all the way until May 21st, but there's no high stakes on Azella, so
Right.
we don't have to worry about that. Everything else begins, I think there's potential to begin the week before spring break. I'm not sure if anybody's gonna do that, but most of it is gonna be done right after spring break.
and it's our choice as to when we
Yes,
start
we are-
ours?
We are in full control
Okay,
of that,
All the testing has to be done in person,
right.
on campus.
on campus.
So are we ready for a motion, ladies? Or do we have for,
Well, we can discuss after we move before we
Yeah.
vote.
You can move in second and then have further discussion.
All right, I'll do it. I move that all Yuma Elementary School District Number 1 schools begin 5-day hybrid instruction on Monday, March 8th.
second?
It's been moved by Faith and seconded by Karen to move all Yuma Elementary District 1 schools beginning March 8th to the 5-day hybrid. Any discussion?
It's perfect. Given what we know, given what we know.
My only comment is by then, we will have had 90% of our teachers with completion of the second round of the vaccine for them. So I feel that by that action and by selecting that date, we've kept them in the safest possible context as teachers,
Absolutely.
meeting their students in person. So I think that's really important, and this is, I guess my only other comment is, this is going along with our current meeting of the metrics as well. Or is that something
The
else?
science
completely?
bears it out, the
Science
trends,
bears
data
it out.
trends.
Yeah,
The date of return is based on the,
The motion on the table
benchmark
is
that-
to set a date of return.
right?
Indications are that the metrics will be met by then as well. But remember, we talked earlier that these metrics were set, these guidelines or recommendations were set before rapid testing and before the vaccination.
vaccine.
And we have an excellent mitigation plan.
And we have a
Right.
great
Yes.
mitigation plan.
There's been no
By all
transmission.
accounts, it's been very effective.
Right.
March 8th gives us gives our faculty and staff, and they're
3
doing the
weeks
hard
to
work,
plan.
3 weeks.
right. And we have the on-site testing and the vaccine as well.
And time to figure out transportation,
Time to
hopefully
make
get
that gives Ron
11 more
plenty of
Get
people
all,
time.
on board.
get all the information we need to really have a good system in place.
And he's thanking us because we didn't pick March 1st.
Who?
Ron's thanking us. No,
Oh, yeah,
March
Ron's-
first.
Yeah, they'll have a week to get that,
Yeah,
those
whole
high
week
school
after
reps
high
down.
school.
Right. Okay, then I guess we'll, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
Okay, how are you guys, are you, Dwayne and Susie as associate superintendents, you guys are good with that?
All right, it's doable.
Too late to ask them now.
I should have, sorry, I should have asked you.
Sorry. That was a good consideration.
Well, I would like to.
We just left you out of the loop, sorry.
I would like to thank the board and congratulate you, really. I mean, this was a long meeting. We wanted to make sure you had as much information as we could give you. I think you made a good decision. I think you made a great decision. I think there was probably, some disparity before, but I hope that we gave you enough information, enough good information, and from enough sources that helped you to come to a decision. I think you made a good decision.
I walked in here, no, we were going back to, no, just kidding.
Well, there were so many points to consider to have them framed out in this overview that you gave us tonight.
Yeah.
From the that was very helpful.
Very helpful.
Yes.
That did. I love the analog, that helped a lot.
We have this framed.
Yes, yes, I really did like the analog much better.
And I have to tell Faith and Adele a story. When I was asked to run for school board, back in 2000 and.
Should we adjourn?
Oh,
I'm
let's adjourn the
sorry.
meeting.
Okay,
I thought we had adjourned. I'm terribly sorry.
at this time, I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Ellen.